did you go?
Oh, wow. What's up, world? Mike and Webb's back again for the 35th time, I guess. Uh, it is a lovely Sunday evening. We're going to hopefully be starting a new series of very interesting conversations with the soon to be Dr. Webb's. Um, Hopefully, the dissertation is going swimmingly at this particular point.
It
Um,
is. It's going well.
I mean, as long as it's going swimmingly, we're straight. And yeah, we're gonna this show. The concept Hoodlums over everything is an opportunity to discuss how we can redesign and reimagine pedagogical experiences given the bounty of tools that we have. And we're going to start it off with what we are going to call the what we're over section. Our good friend Webbs is going to set that up. Give me just a second, Webbs. We got some fancy graphics.
Oh, okay. Ooh.
Indeed.
In 1993, Jurassic Park became a cultural phenomenon, grossing $924 million worldwide, or about $2 billion in today's money, and inspiring what researchers called the Jurassic Park effect. It was a measurable increase in paleontologists, research funding, and technology. But here's what happened next. The original holds the top spot at $2 billion, but The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3 fell off so hard they killed the franchise for 14 years. Then Jurassic World brilliantly reinvented everything and claimed the number 2 spot at $1.9 billion. Did they learn from history? Nope. Fallen Kingdom and Dominion immediately repeated the same mistakes. And that's exactly what we see in education too. We find those magical moments where culture meets curriculum, but then instead of understanding what made that connection work, we just keep remaking it in the same worksheets and activities. The problem is confusing what's easy with what's effective. When we photocopy the same dinosaur worksheet year after year instead of finding new ways to spark that same wonder, we're leaving ourselves and our students out of our own classrooms. Today we'll prove the best lessons don't need fences, they hold attention naturally.
Indeed, indeed. Indeed, indeed. And so this is what we're going to call the overreaction section, where we go through a concept, a pedagogical experience, or whatever, and we're going to really just kind of assess it for some checklist webs. And before we get into that, as someone who is studying learning sciences, can you give us a little bit about a little bit of background on maybe pedagogical philosophies as we're going through this particular situation, reasons why as instructors we need to be doing these kind of activities in our own classroom with our PLCs. You can kind of set the stage for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So a good part of let me back to Charlie up. So, as someone who is studying learning science, which before I started this degree, I didn't even know that was a thing, but like there is a whole area of education and studies that focuses on building really sound learning experiences, structuring environments in a certain way, and being meticulous and intentional about how we build out resources, how we structure learning experiences, how we structure learning environments. So that's basically what I'm getting my PhD in. And so while we discuss this, I'll be sure to point out different areas where, for example, I had an entire class on multimedia and how to integrate multimedia in effective ways so that you're not causing what's called a split attention effect, where students are trying to, and we've all experienced that. Like you're sitting there listening to like a PowerPoint and someone's reading the most of the slide to you, and you're also trying to like look at what's on the slide, and you find it really hard to pay attention to what their message is, or you can't remember what they said. That's a great example of split attention effect. And unfortunately, we tend to do that to our students a
Indeed,
fair bit.
indeed. So let's dive into our very first. So Webb's kind of had this idea about Jurassic Park first, and we kind of was like, oh, let's go and explore what kind of activities are out there in the vein of dinosaur type things. And this, as we were looking for these kind of activities, one of the things that continues to be very pressing in my mind is the volcano science fair project thing. Like, right, the concept that volcanoes are popular and people will continue to do those things, but we learn very little from those particular activities. They're easy, they're accessible. It make it look like,
And they're fun, and there's nothing wrong with them being fun.
absolutely. But I mean, in terms of some kind of deep, enduring understanding of things, probably not. So we said, okay, let's go and look at let's find some people who are experts. And this is an activity from this. So let's also be clear. We are not trying to be negative. We want to be constructive. So again, we are assuming that these were the best efforts of the instructional designers at the time. But just like our own work, we can improve when given opportunities to scaffold those improvements. So this is Be a Sleuth, How Dinosaurs Behaved. And you see that there's a PDF here. There's a little bit, some questions and things that are there. And from just the setup of this website, Webs, we see that this isn't the most interactive and inviting types. It's a lot of text on the page. The text is rather small as well. And then when we click that little link there, we get this activity. It's a one-page PDF. And yeah, I'm going to read the first paragraph just to kind of set it up. Oh, Webs, you have something to say. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I can say it after.
All right, so I'm going to go and just kind of set the stage for our overreaction today by reading a little bit from this particular document. So, be a sleuth, which implies that we're going to be detectives during this activity. How dinosaurs behaved. Like today's crime scene investigators, paleontologists study trackways, fossilized footprints, for clues about how dinosaurs behaved. For example, did they travel in herds like elephants? Did some hunt alone? Did they migrate long distances in search of food like modern caribou? Trackways often hold the key. So our preamble there kind of sets the stage for we're going to be looking for what they're called trackways. So we learned some vocabulary there initially, Webs. Trackways are fossilized footprints. I think that's kind of cool. I now have a vocabulary word that a paleontologist might utilize, right? Then we have a look at this illustration. Let's say you are a paleontologist who has come across these awesome clues frozen in place from the days when non-avian dinosaurs roamed the earth. When you figure out, what can you figure out about these long ago creatures by studying their trackways? Color the different animals' tracks in different colors. We've done the first one for you. And then try to answer the following questions. Keep in mind, you won't be able to answer all the questions with certainty. How did the different kinds of animals, well, how many different kinds of animals were here? Did the animals that left the red tracks walk on 2 or 4 legs? Was it walking or running? Interesting. Did the animal that left the yellow tracks travel alone? What dinosaur walked the area first? How many individual animals were here? If the animals were all here at the same time, can you make some guesses as to why? There's a detective fact at the very bottom that says there's only one known footprint of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Scientists believe that the rarity of T-Rex footprints in fossils mean that there simply weren't that many T-Rexes around. Modern animals at the top of the food chain, lions, eagles, great white sharks, tend to be rare as well. We see there's a little caveat on the right hand side, a little call out. Make your own trackway. You will need a measuring stick. Find a setting where you can see your footprints, sand, snow, or mud. First walk, then run over the same area for each of the prints. Measure your stride the same distance from toe to toe, made by the same foot. What are the differences in your stride between the two sets of prints? Ask a friend who is taller or shorter to repeat the same activity. Compare and contrast the footprints. The answers are there in the bottom right-hand corner, upside down, kind of old school style. If you're a person of a certain age, you are very familiar with this particular thing.
Encryption.
But you'll also notice at the very bottom of the screen, it says copyright 2005, American Museum of Natural History, all rights reserved. So we have some context now for our redesign. Webbs, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, I think that so we had talked about how um, there's always an opportunity to improve.
Yep.
And one of the things that I think is helpful is to think through a certain set of lenses based on what you value. And I actually do this similar activity um, at work as well. Like when we're trying to make decisions about software and stuff, we think about what are the things that are most important to us. Sometimes it's extensibility, sometimes it's reliability. In this case, when we're thinking about designing a lesson for students, what are the things that are most important to us about that lesson? I think that is the thing to have at the forefront of your mind, so that as you're designing it, you're not simply ticking off a list of must-haves, like, oh, I have to list my objectives and I have to make sure it meets standards. Like, yes, those things are important as well, but in order for it to really resonate with both you and your students, like, what are the important things that a lesson should have outside of ticking off all the requirements and compliance pieces?
And to that end, we have a checklist we're going to utilize in order to examine this particular activity. So again, this is from 2005. And what was happening in the world in 2005? Like if we can go back in the time since 20 years ago. All right.
That it's 20 years ago.
20 years ago. I was in my third year teaching. Yep, third year teaching. That's
I had not yet finished undergrad.
Okay, so I was teaching. That was my third year. I was in Pascagoula, Mississippi at that particular point. So that's crazy as well. So teaching then, actually, I am telling a tall tale. It's my first year teaching because I graduated in 2004. So 2005, I was in Pascagoula, Mississippi. I was teaching fourth grade. There was no internet in my classroom. So there was not an ability for kids to independently search for information and knowledge outside of going to the local library. I was a first year teacher. My library was not very vast. So we were pretty much locked into the pretty raggedy textbooks that we were required to teach out of. And so in terms of accurate, up-to-date information, probably not something my young people had access to. And so in 2005, again, this is still on the American Museum of Natural History's website right now in 2025, 2005, and this again, what you mentioned before in terms of context. In terms of context, the internet was not widely available in schools K-12. Colleges perhaps, but not K-12 schools. We did not have Chromebooks or iPads, or the iPhone was not yet invented either, so your cell phone did not go on the internet and do things. So let's keep that in that context as well. So that being the case, we developed a pedagogical experience checklist that we're going to utilize today and utilize for all the shows in order to go through and kind of, again, just assess kind of in a very high level, these things exist and these things don't. And this is based off of Phil Schlechty's design qualities of both choice and content. If you're not familiar with Dr. Schlechty's work, profoundly have influenced the way that I do business, or I did business in the classroom, just by making sure I was aware of, if I wanted authentic engagement, these are steps that might be able to, these are characteristics in lessons that tend to equate in those kind of outcomes. And Webbs, you, again, as a learning science doctoral student, what other ideas should we be keeping in top of mind as we start looking at our own lessons in our classrooms, kind of in a pre-mortem way?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I mean, there are a lot of pedagogical frameworks out there. Um, One of the ones that I like is the ICAP framework. So essentially, it says like you can look at how students are engaging with content in terms of which aligns with engagement. It would be interesting to do like Schlechty's work along with the ICAP framework. But basically, there are 4 levels of the ICAP framework. P is passive. So this is kind of backwards, the PACI. So P is passive. That's like student shows up, they're listening to a lecture. They're not engaging in any way. They're not active participants in any way. A is active. So if you have them doing a worksheet, that might be active engagement with the content. C, I can never remember C. I should have looked this up before we started. Hold
Uh,
on. Let me find C real quick. I always want to say collaborative, and that's not it, but that's my own bias because my dissertation is about collaborative problem solving. Um, Chai and Wiley. The C is constructive. So they're actually like building something out of. But think of that along the lines of like Bloom's higher levels. And then I is for interactive. So they're actually engaging with another person. They're having a conversation about it. They're doing collaborative problem solving, project based learning, those types of things in order to engage with the content and make something meaningful out of it. Um, so that those are some of the things that I look for because you can only get so far when you're learning in isolation. So having that collaborative problem solving, and obviously I have a very clear bias. That would be one of the things. Also, cognitive load is another theory that I firmly believe in. Being thoughtful about the cognitive load you're putting on students
mm,
in terms of the complexity of what's being taught, the environment, the tools that are being used. You're adding to the cognitive load if you're giving them both a new tool they've never used before and also new content. So I try not to put those two things together. And then when you're thinking about kind of related to that, when you're thinking about how you structure your content, and like I talked about earlier, that split attention effect, you want to avoid things like that so that you can reduce that cognitive load so that they can put as much of their brain into learning the content as possible.
absolutely, absolutely. So, the ICAP framework, I think, does very much complement Schlechty's work in that we are in terms of authentically engaging young people, and you kind of see this from, and not just young people, but any group of people that you're asking to work together to accomplish a task, etc. That Schlechty's work tends to focus on product. So, what am I building in order to demonstrate that I know a thing, and not just product in terms of an essay or like? Can we be a little bit more sophisticated in terms of that? Also, again, the collaboration you mentioned, webs, but also audience. So being forced to speak. I am designing for a group, and I'm speaking to that group, and I'm presenting the product to that group afterward. How am I making that meaningful? That does my work actually mean anything? If it doesn't mean anything, then why are we doing it? And
Yep.
so let's go through this particular activity, and we're going to split screen this. And Webs, you should have both of yours on your screen as well, so we can kind of walk through things. We're just going to go through, uh, first of all, the engagement assessment of for looking at this particular activity. All right, and so the goal here isn't to be perfect. The goal here is really to be aware of, here are the strengths of what my pedagogical experience are, and here perhaps ways that I can pre-mortem and predict where this lesson is going to fall short beforehand. Go ahead, Webbs.
But oh, my neighbor kid is playing his trumpet. Um,
I feel it.
uh, if you would like to do this along with us, if you go to theintelligenthoodlums.com and then click on the shopping cart, it is in our store for free if you want to do this along with us.
Absolutely. So let's get started. We're going to look at each of these are components of Schlechty's Design Qualities. And so first, content and substance. All right. So this is going to we're going to kind of look at learner interest level in this particular content. So first and foremost, first question is, and we're just going to check things off as they appear or if they don't, and leave them blank if they don't. Rather, does this connect to what learners actually care about? And in your estimation, Webb's thoughts.
I mean, yeah, kids love dinosaurs for the most part. Does every kid love dinosaurs? Probably not. But most kids love dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are an interesting topic. So, I mean, I think that's part of the reason things like Pokemon are so popular. It's basically like dinosaurs. So I think it does actually connect with what learners care about.
I would agree. I think most kids love animals, and since dinosaurs are animals, like I think that's a pretty easy deal. To your point, Pokemon, a lot of the anime does animals. What is the thing that the little creatures that people are taking care of now? The Lalalu, Lululu, whatever the little creatures are.
Oh, oh my gosh, Labubu.
Yeah, Labubu. That is an animal. Essentially, I'm taking care of some kind of creature.
Tamagotchis, right? Like it's a pretty timeless. There is a reason that dinosaurs are a timeless topic.
Absolutely. So, and what we're over, you really like. It makes Jurassic Park made a ton of cash. Even the bad movies made money. So let's say yes, that does connect to what learners care about. Second, is this topic relevant to their lives or interests?
Yeah, I feel like we covered that.
Well, I mean, I think the key word in that phrase is the word relevant, though. Is it relevant? Do they? That's where I would.
I see what you're saying.
The relevancy. Yes. Does this matter in the grand scheme of things to their lives and their interests? I would question that.
Agreed. Yeah, that's fair. I'm glad that you pointed that out because, yeah, to me, the first two questions, they seemed very similar, but pointing out the difference between something that they care about versus relevant to their lives. Like, if a kid's not going to become a paleontologist or a scientist of any kind, they may not see it as relevant to their lives at all.
I mean, and in this activity in particular, what is the relevance to, like, if you handed in 2025, you handed this to a child right now. I don't care if the kid was the most ardent, like paleontologist, they just love dinosaurs, and this is probably not going to be relevant to this person saying, okay, like, why am I doing this situation?
Right.
So I would say it does not fulfill relevance from that particular point of view. Would learners choose this if given options?
No. Absolutely. I don't think any kid would. Maybe like a kindergartner who wants to color, but that was like when we have done a bit of preparation for this. Clearly, we didn't just like pull this out of nowhere. And when we were talking through this, one of the things we really struggled with was like, what grade level is this even geared toward? On one hand, it's like maybe kinder first because of the coloring. Like no fifth grader. Well, I don't know. Some fifth graders still really love to color, but like it is hard to tell what age this is geared toward.
Well, it's not even a full coloring page. Like I don't get a whole full page. I get a little square, a little rectangle.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, that's
rectangle. Yeah.
That's not cool, bro. I mean, that's messed up. That if you wanted me to full on color, let me full on color. So that's so we have, in the terms of content and substance, we have one check. Learners would care about this subject in mass. All right, clear and compelling standards. So really looking at the why are we doing this kind of concept. Do learners understand why they're doing this? If we look at the instructions given this activity, is there a definite, yep, this makes me want to do it for these particular reasons?
I don't think so.
I would struggle there as well. I think this is like a very well-intentioned, it seems like an activity for the sake of an activity rather than we are clearly trying to get kids to understand certain things. And again, from your lens, as just a veteran teacher, I'm looking at this like, again, it is a solution in search of a problem. the kids at no point get to identify the dinosaurs that are here. Like I'm not. Even if I colored all the footprints, I still don't know what dinosaurs belong to what tracks. And there's no way for me to do that accurately either. There's not a situation that's there. If I look at the answers, I flip this thing and look at the answers in the bottom right, left-hand corner. It gives me some basic information. It doesn't tell me what dinosaurs are. So again, from your lens, how effective would this have been as a classroom activity if you're a second grade teacher, I guess?
No. Because, like, one of the very first fundamental things we learn, and this was reiterated in my courses as part of my PhD, is that you have to be clear about what is the purpose behind this activity and what will you achieve at the end, right? We all learn students will be able to. So I feel like there's sort of a mixed message here. I do like the hook of like be a sleuth. That's pretty cool. However, beyond that, we're introducing vocabulary words. I think that's probably where it's the strongest, is like it does introduce that vocabulary word, and it does use that vocabulary word effectively and connect to it quite a bit. However, some of the other things, like the whole idea of, running versus walking prints, it seems as though what they're trying to imply is that the distance between running tracks is going to be larger than between walking tracks. However, they also bring in the height thing, right? So if you don't have a side by side comparison, or you don't know the height of the creature, that may not help you. And I think that line about you may not be able to confidently answer or whatever, I think that's kind of a cop out too, because like, yes, there are certain situations where you're not going to have the answer. Like, as part of my dissertation, one of the things I'm looking into is how software development teams do collaborative problem solving. And my initial premise is that software development is a set of ill-structured problems. So there's no clear answer, requirements can change, etc. In this case, the questions that they're asking and the activities that they're doing, it's clearly a well-structured problem. There is an answer to it, and you're just choosing to leave some pieces out, either for length of the document, maybe this is part of a bigger unit, I don't know. But yeah, in terms of having clear, why are we doing this, what are the targets, I don't see it.
All right, so we agree there's no real why. There's nothing compelling about that. The learning target's visible and meaningful? Absolutely not. And then, can learners explain the purpose in their own words? If you were to give this to let's say a 3 through 5, a third through fifth grader, and say, what is the whole point of this? Explain to me in your own words what you're going to be able to do. I think it goes back to what you were saying previously about the cognitive load. There's a lot
going on here.
amorphousness here, right?
Yeah.
I've got to go and I would measure they give me the make your own track weight thing. I got the coloring situation where I'm coloring, but I don't know what the point of the coloring is really, and I will never find out what dinosaurs those are. And then I have those 6 questions, and 6 questions is also weird for me. Like 5 questions would be like 3 questions, 5 questions, not 6 questions. That's really odd. But again, this is 2005. There is no internet. There is no way for a kid to independently say, I want to be a sleuth in the way that a young person could be a sleuth in 2025, right? And so I think that's also a lens that we need to keep as we go through this process, that this is a 2005 instructional designer designing a activity with the idea that kids would not have the internet at that particular point. So clear and compelling standards, 0 out of 3. Do we agree?
Agreed.
All right. Let's look at the authenticity check. So
I think real quick before we get to the authenticity check, something I thought about was, so I wasn't teaching in 2005, but there are things from my first year of teaching that if I were still in the classroom, I would probably still be using those. And because, like, honestly, at first pass, when we first brought this up, this seemed like something that if I were to randomly select 50 classrooms across the valley, one of them would have something similar to this at some point during the year. And that didn't seem super out of pocket. but that setting the context of like what the world was like in 2005 versus now really put into perspective like how many more resources and tools and just how much the world has changed in the last 20 years, that like this is suddenly making me realize how much of a fossil this particular document kind of is too.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, again, having taught in 2005 and having to have kids have a pass to go to the library, and when they acquired a book, that book was written in 1979 or 19, like, it was all, we weren't getting up to date information at all in 2025 or 2005 the way that we're getting instantaneous access to information in 2025. And so
Yeah.
again, if I'm using this worksheet in 2025, there are lots of pedagogical questions I would ask an instructor in terms of, like, you know, especially if you were alive and teaching in '05, like, this is probably not a place that I would go. But let's go to
But I think
authenticity
I
check.
guess my point is it's an easy thing to fall into. I can
Yeah,
totally see where it would be very easy to fall into like, oh, what's wrong with this? Like I used this when I was I've been using this when I was, as a teacher or whatever.
yeah.
So I think yeah, it's good to double check. Authenticity check.
All right, so real world connections. So does this mirror how professionals would an actual paleontologist do this activity?
No.
Probably not. So
I
we
mean, maybe that little thing on the side of like, but even that is kind of a it's not authentic work, it's more in place of work.
and that seems, the make your own trackway seems like a auxiliary task. It doesn't seem like the
It
main task.
does, yeah.
So if we're looking at the main task, I don't see a paleontologist taking crayons and, like, coloring stuff and then not knowing the dinosaurs that, like, that seems like it would probably not be a great use of a paleontologist's time. Would
Mhm.
this task exist outside of school?
No.
Absolutely not. Is there a genuine audience beyond the teacher for this task? Could I present this information to community member X and say, look at the amazing thing I did in school today?
No.
So 0 out of 3 real world connections. Protection from failure. So this is one of the things we really want to do in our learning environments, is make sure kids are taking risks, because if they can't take risks in school, they are not going to be thinking about experimentation in their outside of school, their college classes, their workplace, etc., etc. Webbs, go ahead.
How do you square this with people who feel like kids are too like insulated from failure? Like does it mean like no they cannot experience the pain of failure or
Oh no, it means I can fail, and I can fail, and I can fail, and I can fail. I'm not being punished for my failure. So
oh, the punishment for
yeah,
failure. Okay.
protection from failure. So I'm not, as a teacher, I am not going to punish you for trying and failing. That is fine. Our environment is a test kitchen. It is a laboratory. It's a place where we want people to try ideas, see if they stick. If they don't, let's try a different way. Rather than,
Like formative assessment.
absolutely, right? We want situations not where people are risk averse, where people are embracing risk as a, this is the way we do work in Miss Jones's class. Not, I am not going to answer because if I'm wrong, Miss Jones is going to yell at me. Or I'm going to get an F because I didn't study as the way that Miss Jones wanted me to study, or whatever it is. So, can learners take risks without grade penalties? One, I don't think that's evident here. It doesn't seem
Yeah, it's
that there's a,
unclear.
so we're going to say no. Are there multiple ways to demonstrate learning that this document gives us?
No.
It's
It's
just
very
coloring,
straightforward.
and if you don't color,
Down to the answers in the lower right corner.
is revision or iteration built into this particular process?
No.
If I color over the tracks once, there's no erasing the colors. It's if I use green, which is not even a color for one of the tracks, I can't erase the green. The green is there. So, 0 out of 3 there. Creation opportunities. So, in terms of learner agency, do learners make meaningful choices in this particular activity?
No.
All that, every last decision is made for them. You will answer these questions and use these colors in order to do X, Y, and Z. Okay. Can they pursue personal interests within this particular framework?
No.
Personal interests. Are there multiple pathways to success?
No.
It seems like one way. either either you color correctly or you don't color correctly. One could argue that the make your own track way, that situation kind of has some level of those elements, but again, it seems like that is a voluntary pursuit, not the main task in this on this particular
It's
topic.
interesting how the voluntary one is the one, or like the auxiliary activity may check more of these boxes than the main activity does, and yet the main activity is the main activity.
I think the main activity was more convenient to have designed as well.
Yeah.
So 0 out of 3 in learner agency. Product focus. Are learners creating something valuable here?
No.
They are not. Does the work have purpose beyond assessment?
No.
Will learners be proud to share this with family member, community member, the greater world?
They may. That I can't speak to. I can't imagine that most learners would. Not in the same way if they had like created something.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. If your niece were to bring you this document home and say, look, Auntie, this is what I made today, would you be impressed by that?
If she was impressed with it, then sure. But I would leave it to her to judge her own work.
Okay, that's a great political answer there. That's a great one. So the so what test, which is like to me my favorite part of this, the so what test. Like again, why are we even doing this? Would learners remember this in 5 years? Would this be something like would you be like, hey, I remember back in XYZ grade when we did this be a sleuth worksheet?
No.
This would not
Probably
be
not.
okay. Does this solve a real problem?
No.
Could this change how learners see themselves?
Probably not.
So, if we go back through this document, we have only the top boxes checked. And again, it is not a situation where we're like, oh, this is the most terrible, horrible thing. I think this is a well-intentioned situation. It is a document that, given the popularity of dinosaurs and the popularity of paleontology, might be something that a teacher in a hurry would download and perhaps give a young person as I'm absent today. Miss Nelson is missing. Here's the thing, like color some stuff and like, yay. And again, this is 2005. Given that we have one of these check marks here, just one, there is a great opportunity for us to reimagine this particular activity in a way that would lead us to not only have kids learn about dinosaurs, but also other things. And just like off the top of your head, Webs, given what seems to be the intention of this particular activity, how might we just spitball things we could do to improve this particular thing?
I had another thought.
Nope, what?
And now I'm drawing a blank on what my thought was. It will come to me. Let me answer your question first. Let's see. So my first thought was, what does a paleontologist actually do? And to be honest with you, I'm not totally sure. I know they do fossils, like they dig for fossils and identify dinosaurs and maybe carbon date things. I'm just pulling on all the schema I know of for what I think a paleontologist does. My first thought would be like, how might we make this a more authentic activity? How might we better reflect what it means to be a paleontologist? And then the second thing I think of is, how could I make this a less isolated activity? How
Okay.
could we tie in um, students having conversations with one another, maybe having specific roles that they have to take on in order to work together to build a thing? That's my like off the top of my head type of thing. And
So
now I really am improvising in case
if
anybody's
you had to
wondering.
think about like you had to think about, because as you were talking, the thing that really made me think was, how could we expand that concept? And if actually, let's do it this way. If we go back and we look at our checklist here.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Um our part of our goal here is also for us to become more critical consumers of the content that's out there, because
Mhm.
you could apply this same exact process to anything you find, to anything you have. And if you do go to our website and our shop and download this free checklist, uh, right at the top we say, like, this is not about judging, oh, you're so terrible because you haven't updated this lesson plan. It's about getting you to think and reflect on, of the areas where you said no for whatever activity you're analyzing, you're reflecting on. Pick one and just try and figure out, like, how might I improve it in this small way? You don't have to overhaul it, you don't have to throw it in the garbage. Just how might you improve it in that one specific way? Or maybe you take that one specific area of the checklist and you think about that over the week. Like, where are areas that I can like dial, we say at my job, like, and this is quoting from a movie, but dial it up to 11. Like, how can you take that thing, whether it's the choice aspect, whether it's the clear and compelling standards, real world connection, protection from failure, how can you dial that up just a little bit?
And so we
What do you
started
got,
to
Mike?
talk about like relevance and how this works with young people. One of the things I think that is a missed opportunity in lots of classrooms is, how do you get kids to see the local connection between what they're doing in class and their environment, right? Their immediate environment, where I live. All right. So instead of looking at dinosaurs as this, hey, the world has dinosaurs. What dinosaurs exist in my it? What dinosaurs would have roamed my neighborhood? And having kids be detectives in that particular sense, where I'm looking at, oh, okay, I live in the Las Vegas Valley or in Reno or in Montana or whatever. What might, if I was transported back in time, I would do a time machine type situation. I'm H.G. Wells, like made this time machine, and I go back to my address or where my school is located. Am I going to end up uh, encountering a raptor? Why or why not? Um, what is the state fossil for your what is the state fossil for your state, and why is that the state fossil? Like the ichthyosaur is the state fossil for the state of Nevada. Why is that? If you go up, start going north, you will see whole ichthyosaur fossils, etc. But also, like, most state museums have websites that have some inkling of the exhibits that you might either be able to go visit physically or visit online. So this is the Springs Preserve, and look at what they have. They've got dinosaur tracks there. So if I were to go and book a field trip to the Springs Preserve, I could go and see not the exact activity that in 2005 they wanted me to do on a sheet of paper. I could actually do in real life and have kids go into the sand pit, measure the dinosaurs, et cetera, et cetera. The Origin Museum has an interactive dinosaur exhibit now. Lots of, with updated images of what dinosaurs look like. We know that the bird or the dinosaur to bird situation has been kind of very much solidified. If you notice on that document, it said non-avian dinosaurs, where we know dinosaurs and birds have a very close connection now. So we would be able to also demonstrate that particular situation to young people. But what are local resources that you have that you can bring to bear so that kids see the relevance in their local context to this situation? Go ahead, Webbs.
I would say too, like, you may not be able to get to go to, like, say, Springs Preserve or something, but sometimes if you reach out to your local university, so like here at UNLV, if you reach out to the departments that would cover this, they may have people that can bring resources to your classroom in order for the kids to get a more authentic experience, hands-on with, you know, either like replicas of fossils or something along those lines, and to get a true idea of what a paleontologist does. You may even be able to find a paleontologist in your community to come in and talk to your class.
Oh,
The other thing I was thinking was how much we've learned from 2005 to 2025. Like how the field of paleontology changed from when that original worksheet was created until now.
absolutely. And again, we have the power of Zoom and streams and all kind of stuff where there's videos out there. So even if you can't meet the foremost paleontological authority on X, they might have a YouTube channel or a TikTok or something like that in which they're sharing information. That stuff can be brought into your classroom as well, so that you can utilize those things. And again, you reach out to to the foremost authority on X and say, "Look, I would love for you to do a Zoom. My students have questions. How you could role model how to be inquisitive, how to ask questions that are impactful, so that kids get information and then go out and do things with those pieces of information, rather than I think school unfortunately becomes this artificial environment that is not connected to the greater world, and so kids learn things in isolation, and then they're expected once they graduate to understand how the world works when we have never role modeled those particular things for them. So how might we start to say, kid, you have access, at least out here in Nevada, you've got an email address. Great. What does it look like to send an email to a professor at University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and say, okay, cool, you are a paleontology professor. I have these questions about things. Can you send me to resources, or would you mind having a quick conversation about X, Y, and Z? Me and my third grade buddies really want to know how raptors got feathers. And be to your point previously, the collaboration thing, not just collaboration inside the classroom, collaboration with experts outside the classroom as well, so that I'm not afraid of having conversations with adults. Because I don't know, I'm not going to speak for you, but as a kindergarten student at a first grade, second grade, third, you probably don't look adults in the eye very often, right? You don't, you see yourself as a not worthy, I guess, to have a conversation. This person knows so much. How can we go and break that barrier down where I'm not intimidated to have a conversation about information about things that are relevant to me with an adult person who might know a little bit more information about it? All right.
I think this also reinforces the why it's so important to take those lessons and activities that you love and to think about how to update them, because think about how many of those things we've talked about wouldn't have been possible 20 years ago. Being able to have someone come in via Zoom, having students send emails to people, like those things would have been impossible or much more difficult 20 years ago. So why not take advantage of all the new resources you have available to you to make that activity more relevant to students?
And so, in terms of looking at what we could do, what products kids could make with this, right? Given the tools that are available, we talked about Zoom and going on websites, etc. What other tools would be available to a young person in 2025 that would not have been available in 2005 for them to make a product that would demonstrate their understanding or the questions they have about paleontology and dinosaurs?
I mean, there's the very obvious elephant in the room, which is AI tools.
So we have AI tools, but like let's look at before we look at the continuum. So we already talked about human collaborators, right? We experts in the field. There might be perhaps you have somebody
Adults in your
who
community.
studied paleontology at your school, who teaches fifth grade there, might be able to come in, community members, things like that. What kind of analog tools, like forget jump into the internet, what kind of analog tools might come to bear in a classroom if we wanted kids to start exploring dinosaurs?
Oh, I mean, you could pair with your art teacher and they could make something out of clay. They could use construction paper, crayons, make posters, make booklets. Like the analog options, I feel like are almost limitless
So
as
we
far
would
as
have
what you could create.
sand and water, perhaps. Hey, we're gonna
Yeah.
use sand and water to make clay and take pictures of what we came out with, right? Um, so tons of opportunities there. We talked about digital tools that were not AI, that may have AI embedded in them, but not AI tools generally. Like, what kind of tools do we have for young people? Say, I want to make a multimedia project about what I've studied in dinosaurs. What kind of tools might be available?
PowerPoint, Keynote, Sheets. I mean, not Sheets, slides, Google Doc. Google Docs have all kinds of things built into them now that you can make them more dynamic. Um, what's the one? Oh my gosh, it makes you a nice long and it has all your little pieces in it. Oh, what am I thinking of? What is it called? I can't remember. We'll come back to it. Padlet. Uh, what's the one with the dots on it? ThingLink. Um, what else is there?
Adobe Creative Cloud Express, Canva,
Ah,
all
yes,
those,
Canva.
those things where you could really like go crazy, build a website, make a poster, short form video. So here's a TikTok, a portrait style TikTok video where I'm going to be the paleontological expert because I've learned all about dinosaur X. Um,
A podcast. I'm
Podcasting.
going to interview a paleontologist.
Or I'm going to do a podcast where one of us is going to be the paleontologist and I'm going to be the person who's the host and I'm going to ask you questions similar to how we're doing it right now, right? Hey, you have expertise because you've studied all this about this particular animal. I'm going to ask you questions that also demonstrate my ability because I've also studied a lot about it, and being able to have this back and forth conversation and then publish that for the greater internet to say, okay, cool, now we're benefiting our society and our community as well.
I'm going to
But
use slides to make a Pokemon deck of dinosaurs
absolutely.
with like their tracks and all their little facts about them.
But also, if you were going to Pokemon, here's this dinosaur. Here's it's the animals it begot, given the evolutionary pathway. So it evolved
Oh,
into
yeah.
this, and then it evolved to that, and this other thing, right? So that's kind of an interesting thing as well. So super cool. And AI tools, like what AI tools might we utilize in order to help young people deal with this particular activity?
Perplexity, Google Gemini. Canva has some, I don't know if they're available for, I don't know if it's something that students have access to with student accounts, but I know Canva has AI built in now for like image generation. There's
As does Adobe Creative.
Google, which I also don't know if students have access to that, but Google, what is it called? Banana?
Nano Banana is based. It's built
Nano
into Gemini.
Banana.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
those things are great, and then using Perplexity in Gemini and those kind of tools with the expectation that we have scaffolded the use of those tools so that kids are they have a prompting framework, a prompting philosophy that they understand that they are the pilot in that situation. I always bring it back to this example. So I think most people in 2025 get this one. And if you don't, I'm sorry. It's Iron Man. If you haven't seen the first Iron Man film, this is the way that I kind of explain how what at least my philosophy on AI integration is. At no point is Tony Stark beholden to Jarvis. Jarvis is always he can ask questions. He's being sent on tasks, etc. Tony Stark is always the arbiter and the decision maker in those interactions. He might ask for advice from Jarvis, but at the same time, it is up to him to either accept that advice or question that advice and say, okay, I don't really think that that's something we should do. In addition, the most telling and most profound quote from that film is one of the last things that's said in that film, where Tony Stark, off script, says, "I am Iron Man." He didn't say "We are Iron Man." He says, "I am Iron Man." Despite the fact that I do receive some counsel from Jarvis, Jarvis helped me with the suit. I am the person that in the suit makes the decisions, and I think that is the philosophy I guess I take as we start to integrate with AI tools. What say you?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The um, the thing that I have found most important is that I am, to your point, coming to whatever AI I'm working with a clear vision for what I'm trying to accomplish,
Mm,
and then making sure that it stays on track as I'm having my back and forth with it. Like for example, uh, I was trying to come up with a vinaigrette to use with my salad yesterday, and kind of an unconventional place to use it, but um, just the back and forth of essentially like having a conversation like, oh, but I don't want this, so I think I want to swap that out, and what are some substitutes I could use for this. And while some of that could have also been done by like googling, the
mm,
conversational aspect I find kind of like talking to someone, like talking out loud, like rubber ducking. I don't know if we've ever I feel like we've talked about rubber ducking before. Rubber ducking is basically where like when you're trying to problem solve something and you talk out loud to like a rubber duck, it helps you solve your problem. Because like we know that when it comes to education, like when students can actually like produce their thoughts and like articulate their understanding, that's when we know they actually understand it. That's why if you have ever experienced, for anyone who's not a teacher, if you've ever experienced the situation where like, oh, I know this, and then when people start asking you questions about it, you're like, oh, I don't know this, because as you're articulating your thoughts around said thing, that's when your brain is actually engaging and saying like, oh, I don't know this piece, well, but I know that piece, but I don't know this piece.
mm.
And so same idea, like but when it was starting to go off the rails, it gave me the opportunity to be able to say, nah, I don't really want that, I want to go back in this direction. So I think always being intentional about making sure that you are keeping it on the path that you want to be on. And the best way to do that is to know where you're headed from the very beginning.
Absolutely. So, given that what you just said, we have what we call the lift framework for co-intelligent design. We're going to demonstrate this in just a second with this particular activity that we just went over for the last hour. So, lift framework, and this is available on our store as well. So, if you are interested in looking at this, you can look at this as well. There are four different phases of this interaction, and we kind of role model the different phases as we talked through this last bit. So first, working with human intention. All right, so we're really going to have a situation in which when we lead with human intention, it's I am Tony Stark in this particular situation, and really going back and saying what are the things that I value going forward in the collaboration that's going to happen. What needs to be true, what is true, and what do I want to be true. All right, so really looking at those things and not consulting AI there. Some kind of template, whether it's your lesson planning template, you've got some kind of journal, something where you are free of the distraction of AI, going and saying, this is because I am the professional in this situation. I have taught for, if you taught for 6 months, you have hopefully have the ability to construct a lesson plan. All right, great. Here's my curricular expectations, all that wonderful stuff. Then really looking at how do you integrate available instruments. And we're not just talking about AI instruments. We're talking about, again, people in my community, people in my PLC, people in my school, analog tools, digital tools that are not AI tools, AI infused tools, and then looking at the LLMs at the end, an LLM, large language model. Can you explain what that is, Webbs?
Yeah, essentially, the very brief TLDR of it, too long didn't read, is a large language model is a general purpose thing. So it's looking at across language, and it's looking at like, instead of treating, it's not like reading things, it's saying, I know that most of the time this particular image is followed by this particular image. They call them tokens, but like, I know that most of the time an L is followed by an E kind of thing. And that's basically how it works to take in what you're saying, and it treats each of those little pieces as a token. It puts those all those tokens in order based on the information that it has trained on. So in the case of most large language models, it's trained on the whole of the internet. And it is determining what the next most likely thing that what the thing that is most likely to come next is. So it's kind of like autocomplete, to put very simply. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, but it's essentially auto completing. Like, hey, normally people say this after this. Like, you say hello, I say hi, that kind of a thing. So it is a large language model because it is trained on large amounts of language and large data sets. And it is relatively general purpose without getting too much into the weeds. Um, so it's not going to be trained for one specific purpose. And that's what allows it to interact with lots of different questions and data and build different things, etc.
And when we talk about LLMs, we're generally talking about, or not generally, we're specifically talking about your ChatGPT, your Google Gemini, um, Perplexity. Those are, when someone says LLM, they're talking about those particular types of tools. Yes.
Yeah, and the reason why there's a slight distinction is artificial intelligence isn't really a thing. I mean, we've made that sort of the shorthand for referring to these tools, but they are not actually artificial intelligence. And I would argue the more that you learn about what they can't do, the less. Um, I mean, they're still very impressive technological feats, but they're not like uh, uh, um, what do you call it, Skynet levels of intelligent or anything. But AI is just it's more marketing term, very buzzy, it's short. Um, LLM kind of gets complicated. So I totally get why, from a marketing perspective, people call it AI, but that's why it's really a large language model. It's not actually artificial intelligence. There's like a technical difference.
All right. So you would go through the litany of all the tools you have available to you, not just I'm going to use an AI tool. Then the focus with the AI, that conversation, that dialogue back and forth where I'm negotiating now in terms of this is what I want through conversing with the tool. This is how I kind of start to figure out accurately how we might proceed in order to get what I want. And again, through that particular exchange, you are in the pilot seat. You should never just be asking a question and then taking the output wholesale. And as we work with teachers, one of the things I continue to reinforce is if I take some output wholesale and I send it to another human, and that human finds mistakes, errors, problems, it's offensive, whatever, that is not the LLM's work. That is your work. You are the one that turned that work in. And as we start to look at that situation, that forces us to be very analytical and very precise. So you should be very precise in what are you asking the LLM to do and how are you looking and analyzing that output. Webbs, what say you?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't really have much else to say on that end.
All right, so that is super important. And lastly, transform through experimentation. Reflecting on the interaction with the LLM. What went well, what did go so well, just being very honest. It really sucked when it did this, or it really helped me in this particular sense. And then looking at the output from your young people. Did they was what you designed with the LLM very engaging? Was it not very engaging? Was it the same level of engagement as you could have done by yourself? If that's the case, what kind of decisions are you going to make in the future to either augment what was successful or to change what wasn't successful utilizing the tool? And we're going to simply do something super quick. Webs, like you have something to say?
Oh, I was just going to say a couple of points to keep in mind with this framework in particular is that this is not just a bunch of prompts. It's not a prompting dictionary. Like,
Absolutely.
our goal with this is for you to be able to, regardless of which LLM you're using, regardless of if you're using Savis or Pearson or whatever else you have in your curriculum, like, this will complement that. And it will scaffold for you how to integrate those tools along with the other resources you have in a meaningful way. Like, does this address pieces of working with AI? Like, our goal is to help you move from AI curious to AI confident, but it's not going to be a bunch of, like, it's not a prompt dictionary. It's giving you the actual skills so that you can not need this anymore, and you will automatically be able to sit down and say, okay, I know what I want to do. What's available to me, ask the right questions, and then evaluate, did this go the way I wanted it to? What would I tweak or change? And then iterate on that experience. And if you're an administrator watching this would help your teacher scaffold that without anyone having to be some expert on Gemini or an expert on this, that, or the other tool. Like, this will scaffold that out so that you can move from curious to confident.
Absolutely. And so we're going to use Google Gemini just because lots of schools are going to be utilizing Google Gemini with some caveats. We're using the pro version. The education version is slightly different. Your young people are going to also have a situation in which lots of the things that you as an educator have access to, if you're using Gemini, your young people are not going to have access to. For example, once we get fancy dancy like Notebook LM, lots of the things in Notebook LM that are available to a teacher are not available to a young person. Even in Gemini, the Canvas tool and a lot of those things are not available to young people. So this would be for you to explore, but also the thing that I would, if your young people have access to Google Gemini, looking over a kid's shoulder and really playing around with the student version of it to see what their capabilities are and aren't, and availing yourself of that would also be something that's important. So we're going to do this super quickly because it doesn't take a lot to do, actually. Cool. So one of the things in terms of experimentation that I would like very, very, very much advise you to do is to start to build gems. And gems are like these little personal agents that you can design for yourself. I've got two here already that are kind of my lesson planning assistants. But we're going to build a gem for this particular, to help us build this particular situation here. All right. So if I'm
You
going
know
to
what
pick
it kind of reminds me of?
what's that?
Game Genie. Like, do you remember Game Genie? You'd put in a little code and it
Yeah.
would do something magical. That's what gems are to me, is like game genieing your Gemini.
But see, I think of them more like having the Infinity Stones. Like
Oh,
you
yeah, I
can
can see that.
design the Infinity Stones any way you want to warp whatever, and then you can mix them and match them and change stuff. Like I always think
Yeah,
Thanos when I think of these things.
I can see that.
So the thing that makes gyms very, very profitable for you as an instructional designer is that once you train them once, you've trained them forever. So I don't need to go back and continue to prompt them to do the thing. They're going to do the thing, and I can still have that conversation with them. Know, and they know what the actual protocols are. Go ahead, Webs.
Or like the seven dwarves. Like, each dwarf has its little job. I feel like that's another good analogy for what gems do. Like, you have Sneezy, Doc. Like, they all have special jobs. It's basically what you're doing is you're making one special job, and like it just does that special job.
So let's call this Dr. Sadler and a homage to Jurassic Park. So Dr. Sadler, I think it was 1D, not 2, but we have Dr. Sadler. We want this person to be our paleontological expert. But I'm going to go and deal with my knowledge first. There's some things I want to deal with. And so, again, if we lead with human intention, I've got a lesson plan framework. I've got research I've done. I know what is true, what needs to be true in my classroom. And I'm going to give it anything in my Google Drive. I'm going to give it that lift framework is something that I think is important as we go and we deal with stuff. I'm also going to say I've got a lesson plan design template that I want to make sure is something that we're dealing with. I'm also going to drop that Be a Sleuth PDF in there because that's something I want to reference because this is what we're going to reimagine. And I'm going to give it some ideas here. You are a paleontologist who is helping, let's say who is collaborating with me to design real world activities for young people, which will prepare wish I could spell. And spell check and grammar check are also machine learning concepts, correct, Webs?
I mean, some of them are, not all of them necessarily, and they haven't always been, but it's still like a resource.
Planning framework in your knowledge and keep to the rules of the lift framework for co-intelligent.
So you're referencing the documents that you provided in the instructions.
Absolutely. So
What
yeah,
would the difference be what if you just provided it and didn't actually reference it in your directions? What do
then
you think would
I am
happen?
at that point, I'm a passenger in the conversation, right? I'm not. I would. I guess my philosophy would be, if I know what I want, I need to tell it what I want, and I should know what I want before I come to the conversation. It's a situation in which it's like visiting the neighborhood fast food restaurant that you go to all the time. Like, I know my order, bro. I don't need you to go and I'm going to tell you exactly what I want. I'm going to customize it the way I need to have it because I already know what the outputs that I'm expecting are going to be. What I really would like through the conversation is questions and suggestions that might optimize the output at the very end, not tell me how to make the lesson plan thing the way I need to have it. The example activity in your knowledge is a non-exemplar, and we need to encourage authentic product development and multimedia skill use in our resulting activities.
Other things you might want to add are, if you are building off of some pedagogical framework like ICAP or Schlechty's work, like also letting it know, hey, these are the things that are important to me. I want to make sure that I'm hitting all of these elements of these different frameworks.
So if I have Schlechty in there, great. I can click that. Okay. And I also, one of the things I also like to use, and we'll be finished here, is UDL as well, actually.
What is UDL for the people at home?
So Universal Design for Learning. So actually, I don't have that there. I'm just going to do this. And UDL is like really forces you to look at opportunities to make sure every young person is or has the ability to be successful in your during the instruction. It further amplifies further amplifies all the stuff. And this is taking a long time. Let me see if I have my PDF is somewhere here. I don't see my PDF here. We're going to skip that for right now. But anyway, my prompt is there. I'm not going to try it. I'm just going to hit the save button.
Cast.org, CAST. They created the Universal Design for Learning framework. They have an amazing website that is full of resources if you're not familiar with UDL.
The other benefit for gyms in terms of PLC's department, I can share my gym. So if I want to share this with, I can share it with Webs, I can share it with anybody who has a Gmail address. Cool, you don't have to build this gym anymore. I've already built it. And in terms of just chatting, here's Dr. Sadler. Let's co-design an activity which asks young people to create a new dinosaur that could exist different planet. I like different planets and stuff like that just because there are no right answers, but you could indicate you would definitely understand whether a kid understood how biology works, how research would been research would have been done, et cetera, et cetera. Now,
I
it's
feel like
doing
it makes
something.
it a lot easier to get them to justify their reasoning too when you do something like take them off planet, take them outside of their normal environment, like where they can't rely on just what they already know from experience and they have to do some research. I cannot read any of this, so I'm
So
gonna need you to give me the summary.
I'm gonna make this a little bit larger, but it did something I don't want it to do. All right.
Oh,
So
cool.
it designed the entire thing. I don't want you to design the entire thing. This is you working without me being present. I don't want you to ever do this. So what I'm going to do, can you see that a little bit better?
No, that's worse.
All right. It gave me all of the information. That's great. However, if I was someone who did not have the instructional design capabilities that I know that I have, I might take that and run with it and say, despite the fact that I have no intellectual connection to this at all, I could take this and put this into my lesson plans and say, God bless America, right? But in terms of my own connection to this, I didn't actually do any work. So what am I? What am I as an instructional designer going to be able to explain? How am I going to explain this to any kid in my class, to a observer that comes? I don't have any connection to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prompt it and say, instead of designing for me, let's begin again and use the questions from the template to co-design this experience. Now, a little bit longer, but I'm going to understand what we're doing, and it's going to better understand the style that I utilize in order to instructional design rather than that. All right, I have he has the lesson to plan. Let's begin with the first section. Great. See how it went. And because I prompted it to let's reassess what we're doing, now it's going to do exactly what I wanted to do. Make sure that you are in charge of your instructional design process and you're not falling into it just did it for me instantaneously. I'm going to take that and roll with it without having any connection to what it designed. This way, I know as we go through each of the steps, I can question why are we doing this? Here's tools that I have access to where I actually don't have the ability to do that. I only have this much time. I can really go step by step through the process rather than it giving me the output and the magic Santa Claus situation, which is going to make me less, it's going to make me less of a professional. And if this tool can do those things for me, I just take that output. What is my role in this process? Go ahead, Webbs.
I think too, something to consider is you are integrating other parts and pieces so that it works with your particular context. And even though you might be thinking like, oh, this is going to take me even longer, it depends. And I think it depends on what your desired outcome is, right? Like if your desired outcome is I can just rinse and repeat the same thing over and over, I'm not sure why you're watching this because I don't think you're the audience for us. But thanks for showing up. But integrating the pieces that you have as part of your curriculum and also from like an information processing perspective, having this conversation, like I said, the rubber ducking effect is going to be a lot less. I think you're going to find yourself not quite as exhausted as if you were to try and create everything on your own from scratch, staring at a white piece of paper. Having this back and forth gives you something to play off of. It's a lot easier to critique an idea than it is to generate something from nothing. So even though you have more of this back and forth, you might find yourself actually less fatigued in the end because you have a partner to play off of and you're not expending as much of your brain power trying to just like get caught in these loops of just trying to make decisions and what should I do here and there, and it can be very overwhelming to try and lesson plan, but it's helpful if you have like even an AI agent to talk to.
And what you'll have here, and what you find, I'm going to read these webs so you can actually hear what's there. First of all, the I think the tone helps me think. So it says, of course, my apologies for getting ahead of myself. A true collaboration is much more effective, and using the template as our guide is the perfect way to ensure we build a robust experience. Thank you for redirecting me. It's precisely this kind of iterative process that leads to the best scientific response. The Let's Start Here is now filled with questions. Which grade levels are we designing for? Knowing this will help us determine the right level of scientific complexity for the exoplanet's environment and the creature's anatomy. Subject: I'm assuming this is primarily for a science class. Do you envision it crossing over into other subjects like art, ELA for the narrative, or technology? Topical unit: from my perspective, this fits beautifully within a unit on evolution, adaptation, or ecosystems. Does that align with your curriculum? Length: how long do we have for this project? A few days, a couple of weeks. This will influence how deep the students can go in their research and how elaborate their final creations will be. We're not going to go through the entire process, but it was great that it designed the thing for me. And initially, we do not want that. Just as a practitioner, as a technologist, as a teacher who is, someone who embraces technology, I don't want my work done for me. Because if it does my work for me, how can I go into my class and the kid has the AI tool, you write an essay for him, and I say, no, that's wrong, you can't do that. Well, I am not being a good role model of the behaviors that I want the young people to have in terms of digital literacy with the AI tools. So again, we want the conversation, and through conversation and collaboration, we'll get better output at the end. And also, you're going to be best fit to articulate the reasons why we're doing certain things when those questions come up, rather than running to your computer and trying to read the lesson plan that was designed for you because you have no actual connection to what's going on, right? So
Absolutely.
we're way over time, which is actually a good thing. Like, again, this is the wonders of streaming. We got to where we need to go. This gym is something that I just definitely wanted to have people deal with. And Webs, we have a lot of things on our store. Do you have a rundown on what those things are really quickly before I show people on the website?
Yes. So the Lift Framework ebook is on there. That is free. If you want that, the Pedagogical Experience Checklist, both elements that we talked about during this episode are free. If you want additional support in working through the ebook, we also have templates that will help walk you through each of those aspects of the Lift framework. You can either get them individually if there is one in particular that you're interested in. Maybe you just want to really focus on that first step and just do the lead with human intention piece. Maybe you're more interested in the transform through experimentation piece. That is up to you. If you want to get them all, you get $10 off if you want to get the whole complete framework. Or you can buy them in sets of two. It's up to you. You can mix and match and all the fun things. So all of those things are in our shop. If you go to our website, theintelligenthoodlums.com, and you click on the little shopping cart, that will take you to our shop. Or if you go to our blog.theintelligenthoodlums.com, there is also a shop tab there. So yep, there's the shopping cart right there. Ta-da, they're all there for you. The first two being free. And then the rest of the templates. Or if you go to our blog.theintelligenthoodlums.com, there's also a shop tab that you can go to. There you go. So you can get to it either way.
All right. And that is au revoir for today. You've been amazing. It's been fun. Webs, any good things to tell the people as they start their Monday with young people?
We will periodically be getting on midweek to do the, what do we call it? The
midweek show.
Week show, yeah. And we will have another episode of this show following a very similar pattern where we break something down and we have our overreaction and what we're over in the next couple weeks. So go ahead and tune into that. In the meantime, you'll be able to catch this on replay. You can also follow us on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, You can subscribe to our Substack. What am I missing? I don't know. I think that's everything.
And you can also come back to Facebook, because this will be airing again very soon on a regular
YouTube,
interval. So you can check that out. And we're always
Twitch.
down to collab. So Mike at the Intelligent Hoodlums, Webs at the Intelligent Hoodlums, and then was it account at the intelligenthoodlums.com?
Yep. Or
those
help.
are ways you can get in touch with us. God bless America. Have a great work week. And we'll see you very, very, very soon.
Thanks, y'all.
Peace.